All right. Hi, everybody. This is Dan Reeser from the Web3 Foundation. I'm joined here by Urban from Web3 as well, and Patrick from ChainLink. For those of you involved in the hackathon, thanks for your participation. We hope your projects are going well. Please feel free, as always, to let us know if you have questions about anything. We've got the Discord channel going, so feel free to kind of channel your questions or comments there. Today, this is our fourth week of this Hackusama webinar series, and today we're joined by a few super exciting projects. So we've got ChainLink kicking us off. We're going to move then to Moonbeam, another Kusama and Polkadot parachain. We'll hear from Derek from Moonbeam, and then last but not least, we'll hear from Jessica from ArtProject Decentralized. So we've got a lot on the agenda today. I think for just the best use of time, let's just kick it right off to Patrick. So go for it, Patrick.
Thanks so much. Yep. And yeah, we'll just jump into it, and I'll be very cognizant of the time. So our presentation here is going to be building a blockchain with Substrate and ChainLink. For those of you who are coming from the hackathon, this is an awesome integration that allows your blockchain to be allowed to connect to any API, any data that's off-chain, which is an incredibly powerful feature. So we're going to talk about a little bit about the smart contract connectivity problem, how to connect to a Substrate built parachain, and then finally a little bit of implications, some use cases, and the impact that this actually can have on all your applications and on all your blockchains. So just kind of like I said, a little bit of an overview of the problem and what goes on with smart contracts. And in order to first understand ChainLink, we first need to know that smart contracts aren't able to connect to external data or any off-chain data on their own. This is a huge limiting factor for smart contract adoption, because it means that the only thing that we can currently do in smart contracts is token transfers, or when you build your blockchain, all you can do is token transfers. Maybe you can manually input data and store it to keep that immutable chain, but you can't really do any really interesting, really powerful things. And for a lot of engineers, a lot of people will say, well, why can't I just make an API call? Why can't I do an HTTP GET? You know, what's the issue here? This is what I can do with every other technology. And this is a really important piece. And the simple answer is the blockchain is deterministic and needs to be able to be validated by all their blockchain nodes on the chain. If making API calls is part of the validation, then each node would get wildly different results in case like the API is updated, depreciated, or even hacked. So to interact with the outside world on your Substrate built parachains, we're going to need an oracle. Any device that interacts with off-chain, with the off-chain world to provide data to smart contracts is an oracle. They report the result of the data on chain, so the blockchain can stay deterministic, and then your smart contracts will call from that place on chain instead of making the API call, keeping the determinism of the system, which is really important, obviously, because like we just said, if you don't do this, then your blockchain is basically going to be useless. And this is where ChainLink comes in. There are thousands of APIs out there already that are providing data that people need for their applications. And ChainLink makes it easy to enable connectivity between those APIs and smart contracts, even if they require authentication. So that now you can have your decentralized applications powered by the exact same reliable APIs that the rest of the world and current web applications already use today. Now, a lot of users today still don't really understand blockchain. And sending payments in cryptocurrencies isn't universally accepted yet. So when a smart contract has executed, people need the ability to get paid in the currency that they want. ChainLink makes this really easy for off-chain payments to take place based on on-chain interactions. This also works for cross-chain communications and sending payments to other chain. So we're taking interoperability and multiplying it with the Substrate built blockchains as well. So it's this beautiful combination here. ChainLink uses something called external adapters. And you can check those out a little bit in the documentation and watch some of our other videos. We won't go too deep into those here. But they use them to enable connectivity to any resource, be it an open API, an API that requires authentication, payments API, or another blockchain. It works essentially as a wrapper around an API, so you can make these upgrades to provide authentication, processing, or anything to reduce on-chain gas costs and privacy. External adapters can be written in any language that you want, and they only need to react to specific requests sent to a ChainLink node. Because of this, it's really easy to introduce new functionality to ChainLink without needing to know anything about how to compile the specific language that your parachain is built in. Now, here's where it gets a little bit even more interesting. A centralized oracle becomes a single point of failure for the entire smart contract. This is why we create decentralized oracles. Saying the ChainLink node by itself is decentralized is kind of like calling a tree a forest. One single entity does not make up the whole. To make applications that truly never need to rely on one entity, be it a company, landlord, government, or anything of the sort, you need a network of ChainLink nodes. And I'm stressing this point because we've already seen a number of attacks, some type of oracle attacks where the oracle is hacked and projects have literally lost millions of dollars because their centralized oracle infrastructure has been hacked. So ChainLink is designed to be modular, be a modular infrastructure and can be built and can be used to build a decentralized oracle network used to connect smart contracts to any API. You can select as many oracles as you want, as many nodes as you want, or you can keep it centralized just to kind of do the developing. And then once you are ready to move to a production system and with high value contracts, you change to that decentralized system. Like I said, we call these ChainLink nodes, and you would also ideally use a multitude of data sources so that you're not centralized on that front either. So your nodes will be pulling in a multitude of data sources into a multitude of different ChainLink nodes. And these could trigger auto executions of your smart contracts. Then again, once you do that, ChainLink enables these off-chain payments to occur based on the execution of your smart contract. So if the result of a smart contract said that someone should get paid $100 USD, you can utilize ChainLink to send that transactions. And then obviously with a substrate built parachain, you can even customize some of that interoperability to do whatever else you want it to do. To get started with DeFi, ChainLink project has gone ahead and found many of the best blockchain node operators on the planet and combined their prowess to build what's called reference contracts. These are decentralized on-chain reference points that can be considered a source of truth for various current pairs, which is really exciting if you want to build a DeFi or decentralized finance-based parachain. Each node in the network independently gets data from some of the highest quality APIs and reports their answers on chain. You can see the answers that each provider reports, so everything is transparent. Many of the most popular cryptocurrencies or fiat currency pairs are currently supported. And the best part is, if you don't like it, you can always create your own network anyways. ChainLink also recently solved the problem of providing provably random numbers to the blockchain. And we've already seen a number of adoption projects like Pool Together, Chain Faces, and the animal conservation effort from Wildcards. So if you want to build some type of parachain that involves gambling or needs any type of RNG, ChainLink has a way to say, hey, here's a random number, and here's why it's provably random, which is really exciting. Without going too deep into Substrate and how it works, as most of you are probably a little bit more familiar with that anyways, Substrate is essentially a Ruby on Rails for creating blockchain. The Web3 team found that most blockchains need about the same general functionality with maybe a few add-ons or two or specific subsets of functionality, and they made it really easy to add these new pieces of functionality by creating palettes and just linking these palettes together. In my mind, I almost think of it like as taking Lego bricks, stacking them together so you can build whatever type of blockchain that you want. And if there's a Lego brick or a palette that isn't in the system, you can just customize and build one yourself, which is super, super powerful. And without going into the actual code, we can see that adding ChainLink to a Substrate blockchain is just as easy as adding any other palette. There's a ChainLink palette, and I've added the link to the repo on screen, as you can see there. If you want to check it out, there's a video as well that demonstrates like doing it real time. And it's just a super powerful example of showing, hey, like let's get this arbitrary API call that the rest of the web uses into our parachain. The walkthrough on it's on the Polkadot YouTube. It shows quickly and easily how simple it is to spin up an example and how simple it is to integrate your blockchain. Excuse me. And this brings me to our next point. We have a blog that gives a list of ideas to power your smart contracts. I'd highly recommend you check this out. The blockchain space is literally thirsting for chain-linked applications and building unique parachains that have some of this functionality, even more of this functionality, and the sky is honestly the limit when it comes to creativity here. All the power of smart contracts are at your disposal with all these tools and with this integration. Anything blockchain that is looking to add some type of smart contract functionality now has access to the world of safe, secure, reliable data. Integrations with payments and random numbers are now also at your disposal. And the only limit is going to be how creative that you can be to building some of these blockchains. And even more. So now you could, for example, potentially build private blockchains that can still interact with the real world in a reliable manner, or public parachains dedicated to keeping a working history of the world. Chainlink integrations with smart contracts already has mind-blowing applicability, but when you add the versatility of Chainlink to the versatility of an infrastructure that can catapult the interoperability of Substrate, I've said it a couple times because I really can't emphasize it enough. The sky is honestly the limit. So yeah, that's the presentation. Thank you so much for joining in. I guess I jump into the questions now.
Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, we've got one question here in the Q&A from Urban, actually. So
yeah, maybe since I'm on. Yeah, so the last time I was speaking more thoroughly with somebody at ChainLink, we sort of discussed pulling in pricing APIs, right? Pricing on different tokens from different sources and so on. But could you tell us a bit more about some of the other use cases that people maybe like to use that are popular? I know when I was playing around, for instance, with the Raspberry Pi, I understand it's a completely different world, but you could get data on weather, right, and on time, and on just some random stuff that it might not be totally useful. But maybe could you speak a little bit to these different use cases?
Yeah, so weather actually is probably my favorite use case, and so it's interesting that you brought that up. So to me, there's this issue. There's all these different problems in the real world that blockchain can solve. One of them being bad faith insurance, right? If you have insurance and your insurance provider doesn't pay out, right? This is called the case of bad faith insurance. Now, this is awful for a ton of reasons. The first part is you're not getting your insurance that you've been paying for, and maybe if you're a farmer, for example, and there's 2 seasons that are poor and you have insurance, that's your livelihood, right? Like that's everything. And if you can't get paid out for that, you pretty much have to just pack up shop and go find a new job, right? Or something for healthcare, for example. If you have insurance and an insurance provider doesn't pay out, yeah, you can go to court, right? And you can win, but that 6-month court procedures, you didn't get paid, and especially if it's a health risk, you're going 6 months without getting the medical treatment that you need. So to me, this is one of my favorite use cases. And the weather data, if you get a decentralized network of Chainlink nodes providing weather data on chain, you can have these insurance smart contracts auto execute and auto pay out. And so now you have a system of smart contracts that's trustless for insurance. So you don't have to go to sleep wondering, oh, I wonder if my insurance provider is going to say, oh, you had a pre-existing condition and won't pay out. It's just, it increases the integrity of the world in that sense. And to me, that is just a mind-blowingly powerful improvement to the world today as we know it. So you hit a good point in me by bringing up weather data. So that's a really good use case. Price data obviously is really interesting, as you mentioned. Like, price data for a lot of the decentralized finance applications. On the Ethereum chain, you see stuff like Aave, Synthetics, SEP protocol. There's a ton of them, all doing really interesting decentralized finance stuff. Now with Polkadot, or excuse me, with Substrate, the creativity kind of goes even farther, right? Because of this additional scalability that Substrate has. Something that I was thinking about before we jumped on, and in the last couple of days, I was thinking, like, you could build like literally a parachain dedicated to like keeping like history books almost, right? So you can do that on other chains, but you could have a parachain like dedicated to it and streamline some of the consensus of it, and literally pull like decentralized historical events onto a parachain, which would be awesome, right? Because now you have an immutable record of everything that's happened in the world. Imagine in the future, your textbooks, instead of reading off of like a textbook somebody wrote like 200 years ago that can't be updated, you have a decentralized textbook and a decentralized museum of events. To me, that's really exciting. And as far as some of the VRF stuff, or it's the verifiably random stuff goes, you can build decentralized gaming applications. That's like a huge piece. You can build a blockchain that's dedicated to gaming, dedicated to RNG. I mean, how much more do you want me to go? I can keep.
We don't have that much time.
Okay.
No, it's really good. I think just having ChainLink as one of the options, even for people participating in Hackusama, I think it opens up so many use cases, like you said. And I'm really excited that later on we're going to be talking to Jessica about ArtProject Decentralized. She's going to shed some light on that edge. It's just good to hear different use cases coming in. If I would have to describe ChainLink, and please correct me if this is completely wrong, I think what you guys are solving is garbage in, garbage out, right? That's the base premise, because what you end up with blockchain in general, right, is this immutable ledger, blocks connected together, and you can't retrospectively alter them. So if you put faulty information on them, but there's not much that you can do later on, right? It's still going to be there. So the way I always understood ChainLink is, you really solve that garbage in, garbage out problem. You really address that, because it's a network of oracles that serves specific data. So would that be a accurate description of ChainLink?
I would say that is one of the accurate descriptions of ChainLink. I would say that definitely works. Yeah, that solving that garbage in, garbage out with a decentralized network, so that the data is coming from a decentralized area, and if something's broken, like I said, depreciated or hijacked, you're going to be protected from that. So I would say, yeah, this is definitely one of the problems that ChainLink solves.
Sweet. Dan, any questions from your side?
Just a comment. So I've added the GitHub link and the 44 ways to enhance your smart contract to the chat here. So people can reach those. And then if people have questions for you, Patrick, is the best way, I guess Hackusama related, the best way would probably be the ChainLink channel within the Hackusama Discord.
Yeah, that works. I'll also send the ChainLink Discord here. Let me just copy it. I've also sent the ChainLink Discord here. This is the developers Discord. So for for any technical conversation, feel free to jump in there. For non-technical conversations, there are a couple other channels as well you can jump in. But also feel free to reach out. GitHub, Twitter, Reddit. We're all over the place. So.
Also, if I'm not mistaken, you will be presenting on Substrate Seminar, the ChainLink palette. Is that correct? There we go. Do we have a date for that already?
I believe that is August 4th.
There you go. So that's going to be more extensive, right? That's an hour-long format, ChainLink, technical. So do get into that if you're interested in building with the ChainLink palette.
Yep. Stay tuned for updates on that. Yeah, but that will be a much more technical dive.
Awesome. Then should we move to our next guest speaker? Thank you very much, Patrick. This was really good. Always enjoy talking to ChainLink.
Agreed.
See you soon. All right, Derek, I'm going to send you an invite. Derek is very experienced with Crowdcast at this point. Hey, Goo.
Hey, Derek.
Derek.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
So welcome on. It's good to have you back. A couple of days later. Yep.
No, it's good to talk about different things. And I have some slides I'm happy to kind of throw up here. So we'll go ahead and do that.
There we go. Cool. So quick intro to Derek. Derek's the CEO of PureStake and also building the project Moonbeam, which, as I mentioned, will be a parachain on Polkadot as well as Kusama. And Derek will be kind of giving us more insight into all their latest progress, and I'm sure much more. So Derek, I'll just hand it over to you. And thanks for coming on.
No, yeah. So thanks, Dan. Thanks for the intro there. So I thought I'd start with a bit of a question here, and I'm also going to start with a bit of a story to answer this question. So the question is, what is the best blockchain? A question that comes up quite a bit. People obviously have quite a bit of opinions on what the answer to this question is. And if you've seen any of my previous talks, I sometimes look for the answers to questions in different areas and blockchain, but this story is actually from something totally different than blockchains. But I think there is actually a very deep and kind of philosophical point around the story. So the story comes from a TED talk that Malcolm Gladwell gave probably almost 20 years ago now. And it's something that stuck with me and that I think about actually, quite a bit in certain instances. And so the story goes like this: that in the 1970s, there was a guy named Howard Moskowitz, and he was kind of a consultant to the food industry. And this is when people were starting to kind of use like statistical techniques, right, to start to run experiments to be able to improve their food products. And so he, one of his initial customers was Pepsi. And the question that Pepsi had, they were interested in kind of improving their Diet Pepsi product. And they were going to use this new sweetener, aspartame, to do that. And the question was, we kind of want to make the best Diet Pepsi we can. What is the right amount of aspartame to put in it? And so to answer this question, Howard ran a bunch of tests, right? So he kind of created batches. He created, batches that I think that they knew that the right number had to be somewhere between 8% and 12%. So, he made batches of different strengths and invited people in and had them try it, collected a whole bunch of data and looked at the data. And, the problem was the data, he was expecting this kind of like a bell curve or a distribution or something that suggested like what the optimal value would be for this aspartame. And, the data was kind of this mess, right? It didn't actually tell him like what amount to put in. And, this result kind of really bothered him. I mean, I think in the end, they kind of ended up just going right in the middle. But, this result kind of bothered him as to like, well, why is it that, we couldn't find an answer to this question? And, at some point he kind of realized, what, like, I've kind of figured out what the problem is. The problem is we were asking what the right Pepsi, what the perfect Pepsi was, but really we should have been looking for, what different kinds of Pepsis would have been good. And, people were like, well, what are you talking about? Different kinds? Like that doesn't make any sense. So, the famous part of the story about this guy is he was then engaged by this company, Campbell's, who makes a spaghetti sauce called Prego. And they, again, were kind of wanting his help to figure out, well, how do I make the best possible spaghetti sauce? And this time around, he did the same thing where he ran a bunch of experiments and came up with a whole bunch of data. I think he had, different formulations of sauce. And when he analyzed the data, instead of looking for a single best answer, he did this kind of cluster analysis, like you see on the right, to figure out, well, where are there groupings of kind of answers to this question? And it turns out that when he looked at it this way, he realized that there was, multiple different clusters that of interest and where people kind of like gathered around. There was, I think, spicy, there was plain, and then there was chunky. And it's in particular, this chunky result is the one that was, kind of like notable because people didn't, sauce wasn't supposed to be like that, right? And so the kind of the point of the story is that, whereas in the 70s there was kind of one of these things, right? It was like this, there was one kind of spaghetti sauce, one kind of mustard, one kind of, all of these foods. Think about today, right? I mean, these ideas that Howard had really have changed kind of the landscape quite a bit. Where, I mean, I was just looking here at, at the Prego site and putting this presentation together, and there's like 100 different kinds there. I mean, even in the chunky variety, there's, garden cheese, there's 3 different kinds. And so I think the deep point for me here, and tying it back to blockchains, is I think when you ask the question, what's the best blockchain, you're already kind of framing things in kind of this wrong way that these other companies did, right? The answer is not that there's one best blockchain, but that there's many. And, it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish, what your users want, what your use case is. And so, I kind of think about this, example, quite a bit when I'm thinking about, the blockchain space. And to tie it back to Substrate, I'm sure that the people who created, at Parity who created Substrate weren't thinking of the food business or spaghetti sauce or any of these things, but they understood this point, right? They understood this point around, there not being kind of one best blockchain to be created. And that's why, there's really been some great care taken in Substrate to, remove the opinionation, right? And there's different levels at which you can use Substrate. It's very, very customizable in terms of, changing even some of the underlying primitives. That's some of the work that we're doing. And so, in some sense, when we're talking about Substrate is, all of these different chains that are being created using Substrate, whether they're chains or even chains that ultimately will be deployed to Kusama. And I think for, a lot of you that are building chains, you're going to be building, kind of the best blockchain for, your particular use case. This is just a very, very powerful idea, and kind of one of the reasons why, myself and, the team at PureStake is so drawn to Substrate, Kusama, Polkadot, and this ecosystem, this idea that, you can have many different specialized chains. They can be optimized for a particular purpose, but then they can also cooperate, when they're deployed onto a common network like Kusama or like Polkadot. So I think that's a little bit of background and context to be able to talk about, our best blockchain. As Dan mentioned, the project is called Moonbeam. And just a little bit of background on what it is. It is a substrate-based parachain. We do have plans to Kusama and to Polkadot. The main feature set of Moonbeam is that it is an Ethereum-compatible smart contracts parachain. And so what does that mean? Well, that means that, we have basically, we're striving for as full Ethereum support as possible, but implemented, in Substrate as a parachain. That includes a full Ethereum virtual machine, so a full EVM, as well as an implementation of Web3 RPCs. That basically allows, existing dApps, existing tools to Moonbeam node and think that they're connected to, just another Ethereum network. So that gives, opens up a whole bunch of possibilities. It is designed to run smart contracts. One question that, comes up is, well, why smart contracts? Obviously you have Substrate and you can build, a parachain or parathread with Substrate. Why do you need smart contracts? It turns out the answer is there are a number of reasons. For some projects, using Substrate to build, a full parachain or parathread is the right answer, particularly in cases where you need full control of the entire environment. You really want to optimize to a low level, the economics and kind of storage and, all of the things that go into kind of the underlying, runtime implementation. But for other, use cases and projects, a smart contract really is going to be the better answer. You basically outsource a lot of the lower level functions to the platform, such as Moonbeam, and really you're just focusing on, the implementation of logic, on top of that smart contract platform. It's, quite a bit simpler and easier, to implement a smart contract backend for certain use cases. For us, here at PureStake, working on Moonbeam, the interoperability features of both Kusama and Polkadot are really one of the key motivations for us. As more of those chain integration features, come into, get released onto the relay chains of Kusama and Polkadot, we're going to be we'll be adding basically support for that interoperability on Moonbeam, kind of extending this Ethereum feature set. And so just to talk a little bit about, what the goals of the project are and who we're trying, really we're here looking to work with existing projects that have Ethereum deployments. And, the thing that we're trying to do is not to convince anyone to move anywhere. I mean, that's not something that we see as, all that realistic, given that, there is a lot on Ethereum. There's a lot of, dependencies a lot of projects have on, composing with other. However, there are certain things that are challenging. So certain workloads, are quite expensive to run on the Ethereum mainnet, at least at layer 1. And so the idea is to allow for the movement of some of those workloads to Moonbeam while minimizing change because of the Ethereum compatibility feature set, and then simultaneously helping those projects expand their reach to Polkadot, to users and assets that are in the Polkadot ecosystem, and kind of a scalability through multi-chain, if that makes sense. Putting on kind of the the Polkadot and Kusama points of view, we kind of see ourselves as serving on it as this kind of easy on-ramp. So there's for people that are just familiar with the Ethereum technology stack, it makes for, an easy kind of approach to use something like Moonbeam. We can offer then the choice of using the Ethereum developer toolset to build on Kusama and Polkadot. And I mentioned already kind of our interest in these cross-chain integration scenarios. So that's really a lot of our motivation. Now, wanted to just kind of show you some examples. Just given time, I'm not going to do a live demo here, although I did just have another recorded session earlier this week where I did do a live demo. If you're interested, you can definitely refer back to that. But here's an example of just using standard Ethereum tools such as MetaMask, but connecting them to a Moonbeam node, which is a substrate-based node. And so here we're just configuring MetaMask to connect to Moonbeam, and you can see that MetaMask happily kind of believes it's connected to just yet another Ethereum network. Kind of the reason that's possible is this support for the Web3 RPC endpoints, in addition to the substrate RPC endpoints, in a Moonbeam node. Here's another example, using Remix. For those of you not familiar, Remix is just one of the standard IDEs used for developing smart contracts on Ethereum. In this case, there's just a simple kind of E20 smart contract that's being deployed to Moonbeam. And of course, then, with MetaMask, you can see here just a small screenshot I took of that deployed smart contract at ERC20, represented, inside MetaMask, connected to a Moonbeam node. So that's what that is. And last but not least, in terms of screenshots here, there's support for both the Web3 RPC endpoints as well as the substrate ones, right? So it is a substrate-based implementation. And so there are some custom types that you see on the right that need to be added to your Polkadot.js apps. But once you do that, then you can interact with the node using the regular Substrate APIs that probably many of you have been working with as you're developing your Kusama-based projects. So you kind of have this option of working with the node with the Web3 RPCs or with the Substrate APIs. So just to speak a little bit about some of the components that are kind of under the hood within Moonbeam. Obviously, built on some modules being used as we build our runtime. There is a set of components that are part of a project called Frontier that provides some of the some of the Ethereum compatibility functionality that I was just speaking of. So Frontier is a separate project that's under the Parity GitHub, and we're the PureStake team. We are actually contributing directly into that repo to help create some of this Ethereum compatibility feature set, which we're then pulling into Moonbeam, and we're of course have a number of frame palettes included in our runtime, such as ones powering on-chain governance, balances, and other functions. So that's a little bit of the high-level kind of an architecture of what's inside of the Moonbeam node. And just in terms of kind of what we're working on now, we are kind of just wrapping up some of the work on the Web3 RPC endpoints as part of the Ethereum compatibility feature set. We are just finishing a grant actually that we received from the Web3 Foundation to work on those. We are on kind of a collator incentivization, our collator incentive scheme that will be part of us running as a parachain initially on Kusama, but then also on the Polkadot network. And we are working right now on a parachain-based testnet for Moonbeam. For those of you that aren't aware, Cumulus library and a lot of the support for parachains has been under very active development, and that's just kind of reaching a completion point now. So we're opting, instead of having a Substrate standalone testnet, we're going straight to like a parachain based testnet in preparation for our deployment to Kusama by the end of the year as a parachain. And I think that's wanted to just throw out there if there's interest in kind of learning more about Moonbeam, or even perhaps using some of these Ethereum compatibility features, if there's folks that are building their own parachains, that's also a possibility. I'd encourage you to our website, join our Riot room, is where most of the technical questions would be asked if anyone's interested in exploring this further. And we do have a doc site that was recently back here.
Awesome. Sweet. Thank you very much. This was awesome as always. I think what we're all waiting for is Cumulus, right? This is that piece of software. For anybody that doesn't know, Cumulus will allow substrate-based chains to actually connect to the relay chain of Kusama and also of Polkadot. But Derek, a question for you. You guys have been working on this for a very long time, right? We're close to, Polkadot is in the midst of launch. Kusama launched months ago. Tell us a little bit about your tech progress, where you are right now. Are there any pieces of your software that maybe a participant in Hackusama could already use? Could you reference people to something that they could look at?
Yeah, so I think I would encourage people to take a look at our doc site. So what we have now is we do have, all those screenshots are from like a working node that it can has these Ethereum compatibility features in it. So those guys are generally have instructions for basically downloading from our GitHub, building a local node to run in dev mode, and then that will allow you to use the Ethereum compatibility features. I think for folks building their own parachain as a hack project, one thing that could be interesting would be to look at using these Frontier components, to basically include those in your chain to get at this Ethereum compatibility feature set. It is pretty fresh off the presses, so I can't say that it's been thoroughly vetted in every which way, but we are kind of working on looking at more examples, fleshing out issues, and certainly the ones that I described, using MetaMask, using Remix, using Truffle, we have tested some of those core paths. So I'd say that the Ethereum feature set, the compatibility feature set and substrate is definitely coming along. I'd say the areas where we need to work, as I mentioned, are kind of on this parachain infrastructure and how we're going to incentivize collators. So those are areas that are kind of the next up things for us to kind of make sure that we implement in a good way. And I think that we kind of see the Cumulus development kind of heading towards stability here, and that'll open the door for Kusama based parachain deployments, which we're pretty excited about, right? I mean, I think for us it's kind of like the fact that you can create your own blockchain is obviously a game changer, but this connection and ability to integrate between these different chains, that I think is really the thing that ups the ante a lot, right? Because that allows for a whole bunch of new use cases, and that's we're kind of even though we're a little bit on the bleeding edge on some of these, that's where that's really what we're focused on, trying to get everything working.
Absolutely, and if you think of it in 2, 3, 4 years in the future, I think this is just going to be one of the most sought after features, if you ask me, right? The interconnection to Ethereum, which is one of the biggest ecosystems, one of the biggest communities, and just having that seamless connection to a Kusama or Polkadot based chain, I think that's just, to my mind, that's a game changer. Looking at all the use cases being deployed on Ethereum, just having the ability to connect them over to some of these changes is insane, if you ask me. That would be incredible.
I mean, we obviously agree, and I think it goes back to that kind of asking the right question. I think sometimes I find that people are kind of in this, I mean, even on the question of, well, where should I deploy? And the answer is, oh, you should deploy on Ethereum or on Polkadot or on something. But it's the same as I mentioned in the beginning. I think that framing of the question is not quite right. Yeah. I think what I expect to see is more of these kind of hybrid deployments where your app, just like in Web 2 world, right? Your app may be in Azure, maybe in AWS, may have some specialized SendGrid, may have other services. I think apps of the future will tend to be these multi-chain deployments where you can use the specialized functionality of each chain and kind of combine those elements together to create, your overall effect. So I think, that's kind of what we anticipate seeing, and that's what we think, Kusama and Polkadot will really help enable.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, once you build a Web 2 application, it's not built on one Azure, for instance, or SAP or whatever. Right? It overlays all of these different sources, which is probably the vision for Web 3 as well. It should not matter whether it's Ethereum first, Bitcoin first, or whatever. It should be a Web 3 higher level application. So we definitely all agree on that. Right. I do think we have a question from Patrick Collins from ChainLink. Can you deploy to Moonbeam via Remix?
Yes. Sure. Yeah. So we actually have, I think, a video is about to go up to demonstrate that. But in the end, if with the kind of Web3 RPC API set being supported, then the cool thing is all of the existing Ethereum tools, just kind of work basically, right? Because that's the API that they use to connect to Ethereum. So we do have, we have a tutorial and a guide, and then a video I think is just going up maybe today or tomorrow, showing how to do that.
So Patrick says, "Whoa!" I think that's good. But yeah,
here,
okay.
That just came in. Derek, they're asking, how can I participate in Moonbeam or with Moonbeam if I'm not a developer? This person's already participating in staking with PureStake at the moment. So any way for them to participate now, or where should people go to follow updates, things like that?
Yeah.
Nate could drop some links in here too.
Yeah, I think Nate, it looks like Nate is dropping some links in here. So yeah, obviously you can follow us on Twitter, and we do have a Telegram. We are going to be launching a number of programs here in the second half of the year. So we are going to be launching kind of a grants program, and have some other programs where non-developers can basically engage. And and I would say that while of course it's a developer platform, so part of our focus is on speaking with teams and making sure that we're solving good problems for developers, or important problems for developers. We are also big believers in, so for example, like if you just look at the content on our doc site, producing decent quality content so people can understand what's how to use your thing is almost as important, if not equally important, to building like the actual tools, right? So we do plan on we do have a lot of ideas on things to do there, and that's an area we're certainly with other kinds of content is a place where we could have help from we could definitely use help from folks that are not necessarily coders.
Cool. So Edwin, hopefully that helps. Follow Moonbeam, and they'll keep you updated. So we've got about 10 minutes till the top of the hour. Just so everyone knows and Jessica knows, we can go over a little bit, so that'll probably happen. But just want to say thanks to Derek, as always, for the great presentation, and we're really excited about what you guys are building and looking forward to the rest of this quarter and end of the year and into next year. So
yeah,
good
thanks.
luck to you guys, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. So Jessica, I'll invite you onto the screen. You should get a notification now.
So I'm personally really excited to have Jessica on here, because usually we talk to very developer-oriented projects, very developer-focused companies, projects, people, and Jessica represents, at least to my mind, the art community, which is, if people don't know, the art community is actually one of the smaller sectors or subsegments, if you want, in the Ethereum community that is, or in the blockchain community that's really taking off as part of the NFT community. And there you go, Jessica. Great to have you here. So Jessica is a visual artist first and foremost. We do collaborate with her on a few different blockchain-related things as well, as is evident from the ArtProject decentralized name in itself. So Jessica, we're really excited to have you here. Why don't you just take it off and let us know what you got to say?
So I have 8 minutes now, right? So just
no, don't worry about that.
Okay.
You can go as long, not as long as you want, obviously, but you can go over.
Okay, perfect. So hello, everybody. Thanks for being here, and thank you guys for having me. I'm super excited to share some visually striking things and the possibility for collaborations and integrations, interactions, and a lot of fun stuff. So let me share my screen. Share. Oh, no. Oh, can you guys guide me here? And
Yeah.
where?
If you just put your mouse right over your own video right there, there should be a button. It's a computer with a arrow.
Perfect. Right. So do you see my screen? Do you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. How about now?
No. So within the Crowdcast window.
Yeah, maybe it is my browser. Let's see if I do it by just the window. Do you see my window there?
No.
Nope.
Does it give you an option to share your whole screen?
Yeah, it does. I'm pressing on it, but it doesn't seem to be working. I say share. I have this Brave browser, which is generally a little picky. Shield down. Okay. I think I'm back.
You're back. If it doesn't work, it may help to log in through Chrome.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna change browsers. I'm sorry, guys.
No problem.
Okay. Let's do one last try. No. I'll be right back.
Cool.
So since we have a minute that we wait for Jessica, I think it's worthwhile mentioning that on Hackusama, we actually surpassed 400 participants, which is incredible to my mind. A lot of people are still looking for teams, so I would definitely encourage people to go into the Hackusama page under participants, and you can filter for people that are looking for teams. Or an alternative route, like Dan mentioned before, you can go into the Hackusama Discord, ask around, tell people what your skills are, what you're looking for, or what you can bring to the table as well, and just connect with people, build a team, form a team, or do it solo, whatever you prefer. But I'm honestly very, very excited about this. We've got over 400 participants, which I think, Dan, we didn't expect, to be honest, to have such a massive participation rate. But it's good to hear.
Yeah, we were placing bets, and my bet was on 250, so we've far exceeded that.
Yeah.
And just timeline wise, let's just look at the calendar. We've got the 14th, so we've got so about 3 weeks from tomorrow is the submission date. So probably take next week and the week after to finish up your projects, and you'll really want to start paying attention to submission criteria. There's a video required, and just taking a look at everything just checking all the boxes before you get the submission in, because there's a few things that you need to keep in mind when submitting your projects.
Yeah, on the first presentation for the Hackusama, on the Hackusama webinar, we had 2 slides actually saying read the rules with an exclamation mark. So I'd say that again, please do read the rules, not just the hacker guide. We do have some, like Dan mentioned, some of these requirements which are, maybe seem a bit off, maybe it doesn't seem like you should pay attention to them early on, but it is definitely helpful. It is extremely helpful if we get submissions that are, complete, not missing. We do really appreciate the videos. That's always really, really important. But yeah, just to reiterate on that, do read the rules. Oh, and Jessica is back. Here we go.
She's back. And there's your
back with a presentation.
Okay, I think this worked. Awesome. I guess you're gonna see the presenter mode here. Oh, okay. Great. So just to give you a general overview of who I am, I'm a visual artist. I'm originally from Colombia. I entered the blockchain space in 2017, and I make these installation pieces that are inspired in my research on how to think about information in our time. So information is at the core of how we perceive and view reality, right? We can think of the set of informational rules in the Middle Ages were different, and that was the truth. So the link between truth and information is really strong. And then when we think about truth as an absolute term, and we see how in the history of humanity, which is the history of informational sort of sets and standards, we see that the truth sort of changes. So I find that really interesting. And I think that that as being at the core of how we perceive reality is something really important to address as an artist. So information in my time certainly has to do with the use of technology and how information now depends on technology. So these installation pieces that I'm doing take over walls and ceilings and floors. They're mostly handmade. Every line that you see there has been hand cut, adhesive vinyl. I work with students. I create collaborations with universities and museums and young people. And the installation of these pieces become like some sort of learning experience for everybody. So much as it is the process of it, the artistic skills that it requires, but also the concepts behind it are shared in the processes. So it's really, really active in both ways. These immersive environments also bring the possibility for creating public programming inside of it. So I've been really interested in building community around the works, and depending on where the installation goes, I try to create open calls in the space, in the area where the piece is located, and try to bring people and locals from the area to either present inside, have a musician inside playing, or a video projection mapper to take over, and different things like that, panel discussions inside of it. And because I do this kind of work, I was reached by Jason Teutsch, who's the founder of Truebit, a crypto project. Back in 2017, he saw this one work that you're seeing here. And he was like, oh my God, this is almost like the way that we're building this scalability solution for the Ethereum blockchain. And he kind of introduced me to the concept of blockchain from sort of the full stack perspective, like how are all these layers working to build an architecture, and what does the engineering side of things have to do? And then I started seeing these really interesting similarities on how we see space as this physical form, like the building, you know, the stairs, the ceiling, the floor. And then we inside of it sort of create dynamic relationships. And these dynamic relationships are also sort of conceptual spaces. Another example is this computer in front of me is a hard edge space, but we are collectively sharing all this knowledge through it. And that's a different kind of space. And same with the virtual space. When we think about the space of information, is that sort of same kind of dynamic space that we tend to believe that these two spaces are completely separate from each other. Like one is tangible and the other one is not. But when we try and think of these two spaces as analogous or as complementary, we can think of, okay, before a hard edge space like the computer, there was a dynamic space, which was perhaps a 3D render of the computer, an idea of like the whole sort of intellectual process that took us to actually having this physical object in front of us. So my conceptual goal is to bring together those two seemingly opposite concepts into a holistic vision of the virtual and the physical space. So there are these elements: physical space, virtual space, and community, that are the main characteristics in my work. And they fit really well with the blockchain space. And one of the reasons why I'm so in love with the blockchain space is its community. After Jason Teutsch invited me to create a proposal for what was called a Doge Ethereum bridge, which was this bounty that was out there, I started creating a design for representing this Doge Ethereum bridge. And I started building a community to identify who is in the blockchain space interested in this intersection. So we have done different things with ETH Denver, the Ethereal Summit, creating open calls, inviting artists, musicians to go to these hackathons and to interact and sort of propose collaborations between people randomly, you know, the way that sort of hackathons work. You know, there's like, you don't know who you'll end up working with. And that's what we've been doing as ArtProject.io, or the community that lives on Telegram that's called #ArtProject Decentralized. We've been just doing all these different fun things, and just gathering programmers, gathering artists, providing a space for experimentation, bringing the community together. And it's incredible to see the different things that we've been able to do with hardware, software, with data, scripts, creating visualizations of using decentralized messenger systems, being able to visualize on a wall with LEDs a message that you can send using, for example, the Whisper network. We've also been bringing to these events artists, kind of making the spaces live. With art, ETH Denver, I took over basically the whole building with art and design, creating this road and creating ways of making the blockchain space more artistic, and also bringing the artists to see the different ways in which they can interact. Most of what people know between art and blockchain is basically from NFTs and collecting and minting digital art, which is really cool. And I'm also interested in pushing that. But I'm more interested, instead of thinking, how can I use blockchain to monetize, is more like, how can my art do something for blockchain to bring more attention to it, to promote mass adoption, or to experiment. And that's why I like the Kusama network so much, because the sort of ethos of experimentation that the network has, I think, falls right in place with the artistic processes of creation, like trial and error. So we recently, actually today, this morning, made public that the #ArtProject community is partnering with Hackusama to make sure that the artistic community knows about the event, knows about that there are opportunities to experiment, that there are projects that are probably in need of UX, UI, people, skills of different kinds, like hardware and software integrations, visualizations of data. There's a whole array of things that, where you can find the artists playing a pivotal role in really making all these things sort of succeed, the things that the developers, are doing. So yeah, we've been doing kind of going to the streets, bringing crypto art in large scale. And this is the project that I'm actually working on that has to do with taking over this massive space with a design, with acrylic adhesive vinyl. And what I'm doing is taking over the south side of the Canby Street Bridge, which is this massive 600 feet long or 180 meters long underpass. And what I'm doing is inspired by how you can build in the 3D virtual world using voxels, which are these sort of three-dimensional pixels and building blocks, this design, this visual proposal that is going to be inspired by blockchain, and it's also going to serve as a space for all these different activities happening inside. And then we're also doing a release of the virtual space. I did the drawing, starting always from physical and then trying to root it from physical to make it more ethereal in a sense and bring it to the virtual space. This is a Vancouver of public art, and they have a very sort of traditional concept of what public space is. Public sculpture in a park, right? How can we think of the public space like you think, for example, of the public square, where the conversations about politics and the future of society used to take place? That public square no longer takes place in the physical world. It is now Twitter or Facebook, right? So the public space, actually, it is virtual now. So I want to help the Vancouver Biennial open a branch into the virtual space and create a virtual sort of presence. And then I'm bringing the blockchain community also to the Vancouver Biennale and the art and blockchain community. So these are just images of what that project will look like, what the process of turning this bridge into a virtual manifestation was, with different techniques, with laser scanning, that it's like all engineering kind of tools. And yeah, so we will actually be having a release of the virtual art piece in the early fall, along with an expo, online expo, with talks and lectures and activities for artists and for blockchain, the blockchain community, to sort of find where the merging points are. So that will be happening soon. So basically, I just want to share with you our Telegram. So you can just like scan this code if you want to maybe take a screenshot and join us. You're super invited to do that. And yeah, this is my information. I'm always happy to talk to people about what I'm doing. If you have questions, if you want to participate, if you want to learn more about how art and blockchain can be connected. I'm interested in all blockchains, obviously, super interested in the Kusama network. and really interested in seeing how artists are really pushing the boundaries and bringing the mass adoption that we want to see in the space. A lot of new blood is coming into the space through platforms that are minting art, and there's been a pretty interesting boom on the sale of NFTs in the space, and I think you probably already know that. In our Telegram, we have people who are in the Hackusama hackathon, and they are putting together a proposal or working on a project that will allow to mint NFTs on Kusama. So I'm really excited to see that. I'm also interested in the Kusama treasury, and I know that there will be possibilities for creatives to access the Kusama network and to be able to develop things through the treasury. So yeah, that's basically what I want to share. I'm happy to answer questions.
So awesome. Thank you very much, Jessica. I don't know about you, Dan, but I literally have goosebumps every time Jessica takes me through this. Jessica, I remember the first call that we had, and it was just mind blowing. And I think just looking at the chat box here, people seem to like what you've been presenting, which is amazing. So one thing that I would absolutely love to point out, ArtProject and Jessica, you guys are a community partner with Hackusama. We would absolutely love to see designers, artists being involved in the entire Hackusama project. It is, again, if you are one of the devs looking for somebody who can help you out on the artistic side of things, do either reach out to Jessica in the Telegram that she posted, or maybe in the Discord that we have, or in the participation tab that's available on Hackusama, and vice versa, right? If you're an artist, have an idea and want to connect with people, go to the Hackusama page, go to the Discord, go to the Telegram that she mentioned, and let's make these connections. But my question, Jessica,
go ahead.
Tell us a little bit more about the bridge project. I know it's connected to Kusama. I know there's a few things. Maybe you can't talk about everything at this point, but just give us some details, please.
So as I was mentioning, we use the same language when we refer to physical space, right? We're talking about architecture and engineering and construction, development. And when I hear blockchain projects talk about the way that they develop, I can't help to see that sort of mirroring of, we're using the same words. So it just seems to me very pertinent to make that connection. So as I mentioned, the Kusama nature, expect chaos. It's it just strikes a chord on me. And I love the idea of being able to work with Kusama on making these connections between these physical and virtual worlds. Obviously, the fact that this virtual manifestation, let's say Kusama, is blockchain based, that makes it sort of more structured and something that we could find more tangible, as if it wasn't blockchain based or blockchain related, if that makes sense. So what I'm doing is using this design to find parallels on the Kusama network sort of main structures. And also to understand the Kusama network and see how I can find relationships between the design. For example, we have the rainbow, and the idea of the treasury sounds really interesting, because I really, as an artist, as someone who's supporting artists, I think that's one of the main things that needs to be highlighted, is that there are resources for us to develop and do things. And I think that the treasury also wants to portray that, there's that possibility. So we're thinking the treasure at the end of the rainbow kind of thing. And then just highlighting the main events at the Kusama network. Like, how can we use, let's say, the circles in the design to represent those as nodes in the network? How can we use certain sections and area in the design to represent the society, which I'm super in love with as well. The concept of the society is super interesting. And also from the perspective of someone who's interested in community building. Yes, so I'm still kind of in the process of diving into how the network truly functions and identifying what those main events throughout the history of the network have been, to be able to highlight them in the design. So I would like to make a proposal for the Kusama network to present how I can make these relationships between the network. And something really interesting that I find art can do is it can bring people to experience something as technical, let's say, as blockchain, from an experiential perspective rather than a cerebral one. So that's the goal, to sort of remove the curtain, break the ice, and sort of allow for a flow between, let's say, no coiners and the blockchain space, you know? So
Yeah.
that's the goal, using art as an entryway to the space that is somehow smooth and seamless.
So let's talk a little bit about use cases. And, Jessica, we had a quick chat yesterday about this, just discussing what has been done, right? So you mentioned in your presentation NFTs and the subsegment of digital art and the idea of scarcity, right? Having something digitally scarce is just so powerful, right? Because if you have a Picasso on the wall, it's a Picasso on the wall, right? It's very different from a fake. There's obviously a process in between, but this is the first time that something like this is possible in the digital space, right? You can have a representation, a unique representation in the digital space. But like you mentioned, it's also connected to selling all of these pieces of art and so on. So it's still on the monetary side. Can you tell us, because you're more involved in this, can you tell us about some of the use cases that are outside of this segment? And I know you mentioned a few of these through the projects that you did, but something really interesting that you'd like to highlight, for instance.
In the use of NFTs, precisely?
In the use of art with connection to blockchain that is outside of NFTs.
Okay, yes, I think kind of reversing the equation, as I mentioned. People think, and there's a whole ethos of power to the people behind the blockchain, which is, I mean, it's interesting, but I think most importantly, from my perspective, instead of trying to find the use of blockchain as something that is going to empower me, I think art has a huge potential of empowering blockchain. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like reversing the equation in the sense that art has that sort of loose nature, it has that experimental nature. And I think if blockchain developers pay a little bit more attention to sort of the artistic processes, maybe not, they don't have to be making art, but sort of kind of look at these processes as it doesn't matter if there is a mistake, or maybe a mistake is actually what is going to make the project succeed, because then you encounter something that will make it better. That's kind of what the processes of art are. If you're making a painting and you mess it up, and then you have to create a new layer to fix it, and then that's actually what builds upon the completion of the piece, is like the number of layers. So yeah, I think it more than a technical sort of application that I see. I mean, yes, there are technical applications, but my interest is more sort of philosophical and conceptual, and it has more to do with these processes and how they can, there can be an interaction in between blockchain and the forms of artistic practice, and using blockchains in a creative way, basically.
Yeah, really good answer. Dan, anything from your end?
We've got one question from CryptoDate here, so let me ask this one. Jessica, could you please share a few tips on how to start with a concept from scratch for fusing the physical with the virtual space with just enough elements in the art design that if anything is removed, the design will, I think he means will not fail?
Some tips on how to get started on merging the virtual and the physical. I guess, I mean, I think there's really no right or wrong with this transition, unless you really want to create something like an exact representation, let's say in a virtual reality world of what things exactly are. But if you are making a transition between the physical and bringing it to the virtual from the lens of creativity, I think the more that you sort of remove elements, I think the more successful it'll be. I don't think it's interesting to try and create virtual reality worlds that look exactly like the real world, because I already live in the real world. I have high definition vision. Why would I want to lower that, you know? So yeah, I don't think there's anything that would make it not work. I think what would make it not work is actually trying to represent it exactly as it is. I don't know.
Yes, I think a similar question, just to follow up on that, would be for two different audiences. So myself, who's not an artist, how do I get involved with ArtProject? Like, how can I support it, or what role can I have in the community as a non-artist? And then for in the other side too, like if an artist like CryptoDate's been doing a lot of great, videos and graphics for us, so he's artistic. So how would someone like him get plugged in, and like how could he contribute to the community?
Yeah, there's many ways to contribute. As I said, we are finding spaces like ETH Denver, the Ethereal Summit, where we are trying to bring people with different skills together and make these crazy experiments. So if you're a developer, that's actually fantastic, because our community has a huge amount of artists, but sometimes not as many developers as we would want. So yes, I guess keeping an eye on these opportunities that I'm presenting on a regular basis. We're going to the Ethereal Summit, or we're going to working with Hackusama. We want to connect the developers with the artists. So yes, join the Telegram, or you can reach out to me via email, and I'm always happy to talk to new people. Because I've been building this community since 2017, early 18. I've had the chance to meet a lot of people, and I really enjoy making connections between people. So you can reach out to me, let me know what is it that you have in mind, what is it that you want, and I can think of the right person maybe to like connect you to.
All right.
Awesome. Then let's wrap it up here. Jessica, thank you very, very much for being here. It's exciting to have ArtProject in general as a community partner here. It's great. I really enjoy seeing the merger of these two, which is essentially where you work, right? At the intersection of technology and art, especially through this ArtProject. So again, thank you very much for being here. Then let's wrap it up. Today was a bit of a longer session, but really interesting guests. If we just summarize it, we had Patrick from ChainLink, which provides incredible value. ChainLink in general, just connecting data, off-chain data to the blockchain. We've got Moonbeam, who's again providing incredible value, bridging the Ethereum space to the Kusama space. And then Jessica, who I don't think we need to mention, she's providing insane value at the intersection of technology and art. So thank you very much. Thank you very much to everybody who's participated. And yeah, see you next week, I guess.
Thank you.
You guys, thanks, Jessica.
All right, thank you. Bye.